In 1966, a Dutch soil scientist named Wim Sombroek was working in the Amazon basin when he found something that should not have been there. The Amazon rainforest has some of the poorest agricultural soil on the planet. The tropical rainfall is relentless. It strips nutrients from the topsoil and carries them deep into the earth before plant roots can absorb them. The same rain that feeds the forest destroys the soil beneath it. It is one of the central paradoxes of tropical agriculture. The most productive ecosystem on Earth sits on ground that cannot reliably grow crops. But Sombroek kept finding patches of soil that were different. Dark, dense, rich. Soil that looked and behaved nothing like the pale, leached earth surrounding it. Soil so fertile that local farmers sought it out specifically, traveling distances to reach it. He published his findings in a book called Amazon Soils in 1966. He named what he found Terra Preta de Indio, dark earth of the Indians. The soil was not natural. Someone had made it. And when researchers eventually dated the deposits, the answer that came back changed everything scientists thought they knew about soil and time. The soil was 2,500 years old, and it was still getting more fertile. The average American household with a vegetable garden spends between $400 and $600 a year on soil amendments and fertilizers. The figure from the Bureau of Labor Statistics consumer expenditure data we covered in the first video in this series. Most of that spending goes toward products designed to replace nutrients that the soil has lost to synthetic agriculture, compaction, and the same nutrient stripping that happens in depleted soils everywhere. The problem is not that gardeners do not fertilize. The problem is that what they are adding is temporary. Synthetic fertilizer releases nutrients quickly and washes out just as quickly. The same rain that reaches your roots carries the rest of the application down through the soil and out of the root zone before the plant can use it. You add more next season. The company that sold you the first bag counts on it. What the ancient people of the Amazon figured out, and what Wim Sombroek's discovery confirmed, was that there is a soil amendment that does not wash away, an amendment that bonds permanently to the soil structure, holds nutrients in the root zone instead of losing them to drainage, creates habitat for the beneficial microbes that make those nutrients bioavailable, and continues to improve soil quality for centuries after a single application. It is charcoal. Specifically, charcoal produced from yard waste and wood under limited oxygen conditions. The same material your fire pit produces every time you let the wood smolder instead of burning clean. The material your grandfather dug into his garden beds before anyone told him he should buy something in a bag instead. The USDA's soil management guidance mentioned it through the 1930s and early 1940s. After World War II, when the same chemical companies that had manufactured explosives converted their plants to produce synthetic fertilizer, the guidance was revised. Charcoal soil amendment did not appear in the next edition, not because it had stopped working, because it cannot be sold on a repeat purchase cycle. The first time I noticed what the Amish were doing with the material from their fire pits, it was not what I expected to see. I had come to understand the wood ash, the complete combustion product we covered in the first video. But alongside the pale gray ash in the bottom of the pit, there was charcoal, black, porous, still holding the shape of the wood it had been. The man I was visiting did not discard it. He collected it separately. He crushed it with a mallet into smaller pieces. He soaked it in the liquid compost barrel we have discussed in this series, and after several weeks, he mixed it into the beds where he planted his heaviest feeding crops. I asked him what it did. He said the old people called it black gold. He said his grandfather told him the soil remembers charcoal. He said once it's in the ground, it works forever. He was not speaking metaphorically. He was describing what Cornell University later confirmed with 30 years of documented research. Let me give you the science, because this is the most important thing I will say in this video. Johannes Lehmann is a professor of biochemistry in the Department of Crop and Soil Sciences at Cornell University. He has spent his career studying terra preta and the role of biochar in soil systems.
In 2006, speaking at the annual meeting of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, he stated this directly. The knowledge that we can gain from studying the Amazonian dark earths can teach us how to restore degraded soils, triple crop yields, and support a wide array of crops in regions with agriculturally poor soils. Triple crop yields from charcoal, made from wood you're already burning. Here's the mechanism. Biochar is an extraordinarily porous material. A single gram of biochar, a piece smaller than your fingernail, contains a surface area of several hundred square meters when measured at the microscopic level. That surface area is why it works. When biochar is incorporated into soil, that vast internal surface becomes a habitat for soil microbes, the bacteria and fungi that break down organic material into the forms plants can actually absorb. The microbes colonize the interior of the char particle and use it as a base of operations, protected from predators, buffered from temperature extremes, supplied with nutrients from the organic matter around them. The microbial population in biochar-amended soil is measurably more diverse and more active than in untreated soil. But the surface area also holds nutrients directly. The same potassium we discussed in video 1, the same phosphorus we found in the comfrey liquid from video 4. These charged particles bond to the internal surfaces of biochar and are held there, not washed away by rain, not locked in chemical compounds that roots cannot access, held on the surface of the char, available to plant roots and their microbial partners, ready to be released when the plant needs them. Terra preta soil, according to research at Cornell and the University of Oxford, contains 3 to 18 times more carbon than the surrounding Amazon soil. It makes up approximately 10% of the Amazon basin. Some deposits are 6.5 feet deep, and in documented cases, fields amended with terra preta have been under continuous cultivation without additional fertilization for 40 years with no decline in productivity. Wim Sombroek found this soil in 1966. It was 2,500 years old. The oldest layers of intentionally created dark earth have since been dated to 5,000 years before the present by MIT researchers studying the Amazon basin. 5,000 years of continuous soil improvement from a material made by controlled burning of organic waste. Your fire pit produces it every time you let the wood smolder.
Here is the part of the story that connects directly to what we have already built in this series. In video 1, we discussed wood ash, the pale gray powder that remains when wood burns completely. Hot fire, open air, full oxygen. That ash contains potassium, calcium, and phosphorus. It improves the mineral content of the top layers of soil. It works in the season you apply it. In video 4, we discussed comfrey, the plant that mines your subsoil, concentrating those same minerals in its leaves and delivering them as liquid feed through the growing season. Both of those systems address available nutrients. They add what the plant needs to the zone where roots can reach it. Biochar does something different. Biochar restructures the soil itself. It changes the physical and biological architecture of your ground so that the nutrients from your ash and your comfrey and everything else you add are held there instead of washing away. It is not a fertilizer. It is the infrastructure that makes fertilizers work permanently. And here is what your fire has been telling you since video 1. The same fire that produces ash produces biochar. The difference is oxygen. When wood burns hot and open with full air supply, the carbon combusts completely. What remains is ash, mineral-rich, potassium-bearing, the white and gray powder we spread in the garden in video 1. When wood burns slowly with limited oxygen, in a smoldering pile, in a covered pit, in a fire that is suppressed before it fully combusts, the carbon does not burn away. It remains as charcoal, black, porous, structured. The same wood, the same fire, a different result depending on how much air you allow. Your grandfather knew both. He used both. The ash went on the surface, the charcoal went into the ground. The fire produced both, and neither one was wasted.
In 1945, the USDA stopped telling extension program farmers about charcoal as a soil amendment. The same chemical companies that converted their World War II munitions facilities to fertilizer production needed a market of farmers who bought inputs every season. Charcoal is made from yard waste. It improves soil permanently. It cannot be sold on a subscription. It was absent from the revised guidance. Johannes Lehmann at Cornell spent his career rebuilding the science that was already in your grandfather's hands. The ancient Amazon communities that created terra preta were not unique. Research documented in the peer-reviewed literature on biochar shows evidence of charcoal soil amendment from almost every region in the world where traditional farming communities operated without synthetic inputs. In Japan, the Kishu Binchotan tradition, charcoal production for soil and water purification, has been documented for centuries. Japanese gardeners have incorporated charcoal into agricultural soil as a standard amendment for generations. In Europe, historical agricultural records document charcoal application to heavy clay soils in Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands as far back as the 18th century. The same Swiss and German communities that sent the first Amish families to Lancaster County brought this knowledge with them. In the American Southwest, the Anasazi, the same civilization that channeled rainwater from mesa tops into reservoirs we discussed in Video 5, incorporated charred agricultural waste into their dryland garden soil to hold the moisture their desert environment made scarce. Every agricultural civilization that operated without access to synthetic inputs and needed to maintain soil fertility across generations arrived at the same material, charcoal, buried in the ground, working for centuries after a single application. And then, in 1945, one country's agricultural guidance stopped mentioning it, and within 20 years, the knowledge had faded from the practice of every farmer trained on those manuals. The Amish did not train on those manuals. The man in Lancaster County who collected the charcoal from his fire pit and crushed it and soaked it in compost liquid and dug it into his garden beds was doing what his grandfather showed him. What the records show was standard practice in the Swiss and German farming communities his ancestors came from. What the research at Cornell confirms works exactly as his grandfather said it did. The soil remembers charcoal. He was right. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this requires a farm or a specific setup, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need a farm. You need a fire, a fireplace, a wood stove, a fire pit, or a simple hole in the ground. And you need to understand the difference between what you have been producing and what you have been throwing away. I'm going to give you two methods. The first is free and requires nothing you do not already own. The second produces more consistent results and costs under $20. And then I'm going to tell you the one step that most people skip, the step that determines whether what you make actually helps your garden or temporarily hurts it. Here is System 1, the cone pit, the method your grandfather used without knowing its name. Dig a cone-shaped hole in your garden or yard, approximately 20 inches across at the top, narrowing to a point at the base, approximately 30 to 40 inches deep. The cone shape is not arbitrary. As the fire burns inside it, the flames rise from the sloping sides and reduce the oxygen reaching the lower material. This creates the limited oxygen environment that produces charcoal instead of ash. Collect dry woody material, not pressure-treated lumber, not painted or chemically treated wood. Natural wood only, the same rule as Video 1. Prunings, branches, garden waste, small logs, cut to manageable lengths, roughly 12 to 18 inches. Start a small fire at the base of the cone with dry twigs. Once it's burning well, begin adding layers of material on top. The key indicator is color. When each layer transitions from active flame to black char with a thin white ash coating on the outer edges, that's the moment to add the next layer. You're watching for that black charred surface to appear. When it does, cover it with the next layer before it progresses to full ash. Continue layering until you reach the top of the cone or run out of material. When the top layer shows the same black char with white edges before it progresses further into gray ash, quench the entire pit with water, thoroughly. The quenching stops the combustion and preserves the charcoal structure. Without quenching, the material will continue to oxidize into ash. This is the moment that determines whether you have biochar or ash. Both are useful. This is how you choose which one you're making. Once fully cooled, remove the charcoal from the pit. Crush it into smaller fragments. A mallet or the back of a spade works well. The target size is roughly the diameter of a pea or smaller. Finer is better for faster results.
Here is System 2, the metal barrel method, for anyone who wants a more controlled process. Take a standard steel barrel or metal trash can with a lid. Drill several small holes, 1/4 inch diameter, around the base of the barrel. These allow just enough oxygen to sustain combustion without providing enough air for full burning. Fill the barrel 3/4 full with dry, woody material. Light a fire on top, not at the base, and place the lid loosely on top to limit air from above. Smoke will pour from the base holes initially. As combustion progresses, the smoke will reduce significantly and then clear almost completely. When the smoke clears and the exit gas becomes near invisible, the material is at or near full charring. Seal the lid tightly and close or plug the base holes. Deny the fire all oxygen. The residual heat will continue the charring process, and then the fire will self-extinguish without converting the char to ash. Allow to cool completely before opening, several hours minimum. What remains inside is biochar, ready for the charging step. Now here is the step that most people do not know and that determines whether your biochar works immediately or temporarily draws nutrients away from your plants. Raw biochar is not ready to apply directly to soil. Because of its extraordinary porosity and surface area, raw biochar is essentially an empty sponge. When placed in soil in its raw state, it will absorb available nutrients from the surrounding ground before the microbial population has had time to colonize it. Applied directly, it can temporarily reduce plant performance rather than improve it. The ancient Amazon communities understood this through observation. They incorporated kitchen scraps, manure, bones, and organic waste along with the charcoal. Modern research confirms what they observed. Biochar must be charged, preloaded with organic material and microbial life before application. Here is the charging process. Mix your crushed biochar with finished compost at a ratio of approximately 1 part biochar to 2 or 3 parts compost by volume. Alternatively, soak the biochar in compost tea, liquid comfrey feed from video 4, or any nitrogen-rich liquid. Diluted urine at 10:1 with water is traditional and effective. Allow the mixture to sit for 3 to 4 weeks in a covered container or pile. During this time, the microbial life from the compost colonizes the internal surfaces of the biochar particles. The organic nutrients from the compost bond to those internal surfaces. What you have after 3 to 4 weeks is not raw charcoal. It is a microbially active, nutrient-loaded soil amendment that releases its contents slowly and continuously into the root zone, held there by the char structure rather than washing away with the first heavy rain. Apply charged biochar to your garden beds by working it into the top 6 to 8 inches of soil before planting. A rate of 10 to 20% biochar by volume in the top layer is the research recommendation from Cornell University's published findings on home garden application. For a raised bed 4 feet by 8 feet by 12 inches deep, that's roughly 1 to 2 cubic feet of charged biochar mixed through the bed. Once applied, you do not need to apply it again. The charcoal does not break down, it does not wash away, it does not oxidize. It remains in your soil, improving the structure, holding nutrients, hosting microbial life for decades, for generations, for as long as the soil exists. The Amazon farmers who made terra preta will never tend those fields again. Their great-grandchildren's children's descendants are still farming them today. Before I give you the number, I want to hear something specific from you. Tell me in the comments, after video 1, did you start saving your wood ash? And if you did, have you also been noticing the charcoal in the bottom of your fire pit that you were not sure what to do with? Because if the answer to both is yes, you have been producing a complete soil system every time you light a fire. Ash for the mineral surface layer, charcoal for the permanent soil structure. Two products, one fire. The same thing the Amish have been doing from the same fire for 300 years in Lancaster County. Your question and your answer below help me understand where this audience is in building the full system. Here's the number. Commercial biochar, the bagged, processed product sold at garden centers and online, costs between $5 and $10 per pound. For enough to treat a standard raised bed of 32 square feet to the Cornell recommended depth, a gardener would spend between $100 and $250. For a complete kitchen garden of 4 to 6 raised beds, the size that would supply a family with meaningful produce through the season, the commercial biochar investment is $400 to $800. Applied once, permanently. The cone pit method requires a shovel. The barrel method requires a metal container you likely already own. The charging material is the finished compost you are already producing, or the comfrey liquid from video 4, which costs $6 to set up permanently. The yard waste and wood prunings that feed the fire cost nothing. The charcoal they produce costs nothing beyond the time to make it. $400 to $800 for the commercial product, $0 for the fire pit version. And the fire pit version is chemically identical. Cornell University's Johannes Lehmann documented the ability to triple crop yields from this material. The Amazon farmers who created terra preta built soil that is still productive 2,500 years later. Wim Sombrook founded in 1966 and spent his career trying to get the agricultural establishment to pay attention. The USDA stopped mentioning charcoal as a soil amendment in 1945, the same year the synthetic fertilizer industry took over the extension programs that had previously taught your grandfather how to farm. Your grandfather did not need the extension programs to tell him about charcoal. He had already seen what it did. The man in Lancaster County who showed me how he collected the charcoal from his fire pit did not know the name Wim Sombrook. He did not know that Cornell University had spent decades documenting exactly what he was doing. He did not know that MIT researchers had confirmed the intentionality of the ancient Amazon farming communities that created the same dark earth he was building in the corner of his kitchen garden. He knew what his grandfather showed him, that the soil remembers charcoal, that once it is in the ground, it works forever, that the fire gives you two things, and your grandfather never wasted either one. The knowledge was always yours.